Logan Carter lived alone, but he was never lonely. His ranch had been his home for more than 20 years. It sat at the edge of Benton Creek, where the hills rolled like old waves and the sky felt bigger than life itself. Logan rose with the sun, fed his cows, fixed fences, and worked the land like it was part of him. Maybe it was. He didn't have much, but he had everything he needed. He wasn't flashy or loud. He wore old boots, clean jeans, and a hat that had seen too many summers. People in town knew him. Some liked him. Others thought he was strange for living so far out all by himself. But Logan didn't mind what people thought. He liked quiet, liked space, liked waking up without noise outside his window. The HOA didn't exist when he bought the land. Back then, it was just open skies and wild grasses. No rules about paint, color, or lawn height. No one looking over his fence and judging his tools left on the porch. Then came change. First, it was just talk. Rich folks from the city buying up land, building houses with big windows and stone driveways. Then came the signs. Benton Ridgeline Estates, they called it. Soon after came the fences. Neat ones, white or black, going up like walls around new homes. Logan watched from his porch as tractors dug lines and metal posts went into the ground. He told himself it wasn't his fight. Until the day he tried to drive to town and found a locked gate blocking his usual path. His heart dropped. He got out and stared at the chain-link fence stretching left and right, cutting across his land like an ugly scar. There was a sign nailed to the post, "Private community, no trespassing." He stood there for a long time, not moving. The wind moved past him, carrying dust and silence. Logan had paid his taxes, respected the land, and kept to himself. Now, someone else wanted to decide how he lived. He turned back to his truck, jaw tight, hands shaking. Whatever peace he had known was gone. Logan didn't sleep much that first week. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the gate, tall, cold, and locked. It wasn't just metal and chain. It was a message, a warning. You don't belong here anymore. He tried to stay calm. He wrote letters, polite ones at first. He asked why the fence was built without notice, how he was supposed to reach the main road, and who had the right to make those choices for him. No one answered. Then came the HOA. They showed up one morning in clean clothes with shiny shoes and clipboards. At the head of the group was Barbara Ellis, a woman in her 60s with sharp glasses and an even sharper voice. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Carter," she said, "we're trying to build a safe, welcoming community. This fence is for everyone's protection." Logan crossed his arms. "Funny, doesn't feel like protection. Feels like being locked out of my own home." Barbara flipped through her papers. "You still have access just through the main gate now. We'd be happy to issue you a key so long as you follow the guidelines." She handed him a packet. Rules about yard work, paint colors, noise hours, even what kind of lights he could use outside. It was too much, too fast. "I never signed up for this," he said. "You're part of the community now," she replied. Community? He hadn't voted for them, didn't ask for their help. And now they were telling him how to live? Later, that day he walked down to the gate again. It stood between him and town, between him and freedom. The only working key belonged to Marvin and Linda Porter, the couple who owned the land next door. They were nice enough, but they lived in Chicago most of the year. Asking them every time he needed to leave felt wrong. That's when he started thinking differently. What if the gate didn't lock him out? What if it locked others in? It wasn't revenge, it was fairness. If they wanted control, maybe it was time he had some too. The idea settled deep in his chest. Maybe he could buy the Porter property. Maybe then, for once, he wouldn't be the one asking for permission. Maybe it was time he held the key. Logan didn't waste time. Once the idea took root, it grew fast. He had no love for lawyers or big deals, but he knew how to make a fair offer and shake on it. So early one morning, he drove down to Marvin and Linda Porter's place. The house was quiet, the curtains still drawn. He knocked, waited, then knocked again. After a few minutes, Linda opened the door in her robe, surprised to see him. "Logan," she said, rubbing her eyes. "What brings you out here?" "I heard your property's up for sale," he said, keeping his voice calm. She nodded slowly. "Yes, we're getting older, don't use it much anymore." "I'd like to buy it," he said straight away. Linda blinked. "You want to live here too?" "No," he said. "I just need the gate." She looked confused, but after a long pause, she smiled. "Well, we've had calls from a few folks, but if you're serious, we'd rather sell to someone we know." They talked more that morning. Linda called Marvin, who came down with coffee and questions. They were kind people, not rich, not greedy. They liked Logan, trusted him. By noon, he had their word. If he made an offer before they listed it with a real estate agent, they'd take it seriously. That night, Logan sat at his kitchen table, papers spread out around him. He didn't have much saved, but he could borrow. He called his brother Danny, explained what he wanted to do. "You're buying a second piece of land just to control a gate?" Danny asked, half laughing. "It's not about control," Logan said. "It's about choice." "Mine." Danny sighed. "Just don't lose your ranch trying to prove a point." But Logan wasn't doing this for anger. He was tired of being pushed around by people who thought they could change his life without asking. This was his way of standing firm. The next week passed in meetings, papers, and small talk with the bank. He got a short-term loan, signed what he needed to sign, and made the official offer. Then he waited and prayed. The porters accepted. It was done. Logan Carter now owned the only key to the gate, and for the first time in weeks, he felt like he could breathe again. The first time Logan changed the lock, he felt a strange mix of guilt and pride. He didn't like being the one to shut someone out. That's what he had been fighting against all along. But now it wasn't about keeping people away. It was about making sure they couldn't take things for granted. He walked up to the gate with a new padlock in hand. The old one still hung loosely, left behind by the porters. They hadn't cared much for control. Just peace and quiet, same as him. But times had changed. Now every person who wanted through had to ask him first. He posted a sign on the gate, "Private property, no trespassing." It wasn't long before the HOA found out what he'd done. Barbara Ellis showed up again, this time not alone. She brought 2 more board members. Carl and June, both older, both used to getting their way. They stood at the locked gate, arms crossed, faces tight with frustration. "Logan," Barbara said, voice sharp but polite. "We heard you bought the Porter land. That's fine. But locking the gate? This isn't how we do things here." Logan leaned against his truck, calm but firm. "This is my property now. I can lock my gate if I want to." Carl stepped forward. "You're blocking access for everyone." "I'm protecting my land," Logan said. "If your people need through, they can ask me, same as always." Barbara's lips pressed into a thin line. "We'll have to discuss this at the next meeting." Logan shrugged. "Go ahead, I'll be here." They left angry, muttering among themselves. But Logan didn't feel victorious. He just felt tired. Still, news spread fast. Some neighbors came by just to see the gate for themselves. A few shook their heads and drove off. Others smiled. One man even thanked him. Molly Jones stopped by late one afternoon. She lived down the road in a small rental cabin with her teenage son. She had her own issues with the HOA. Too many rules, too many fines. "You really did it, huh?" she asked, looking at the gate. Logan nodded. "Had to." She smiled softly. "Thanks for standing up for the rest of us." That moment stayed with him. He wasn't doing this to hurt anyone. He just wanted to live his life the way he always had. Free, fair, and on his own terms. And maybe, just maybe, so did others. The more the gate became a symbol, the heavier it felt. At first, Logan had thought it would be simple. He'd own the key, people would ask to use the gate, and he'd let them through like any neighbor would. But it didn't stay that way for long. The gate wasn't just a gate anymore. It was power, control, a test. And some people didn't like it. Barbara sent more letters, official ones. She warned him about obstruction of community access and violation of shared land agreements. He didn't answer. The HOA tried to get the sale reversed, saying Marvin and Linda should have offered the property to the association first. They failed. Still, the pressure built. Logan started getting calls late at night. Some were angry voices, others just silence. A few neighbors stopped by in person, asking if they could get their own keys or if he'd consider opening the gate full-time. He said no each time, politely but firmly. But with every no, he felt smaller. He missed sleep, missed peace. Some mornings he woke up tired just thinking about what came next. His brother Danny visited one weekend and saw the change right away. "You look like hell," Danny said, stepping out of his truck. "Feel like it too," Logan replied. Danny walked around the ranch with him, watched him check on the cows, fix a broken rail, and glance toward the gate more than once. "This fight's eating you up," Danny said finally. Logan leaned against the fence. "Feels like it's not even about the gate anymore." "It never was," Danny said. "It's about being told you don't matter." That hit hard, because it was true. Later that evening, Molly showed up again. She brought chili and fresh bread, and she didn't talk about the gate at all. Just sat with him, on the porch, watching the sun dip low. "I know you're not doing this for yourself," she said after a while, "but I'm glad you are." Logan looked at her. "Why?" "Because someone has to stand up for the little folks. And right now, you're the only one who will." Those words stayed with him longer than he expected. Maybe it was heavy. Maybe he was tired. But maybe he still had to keep going. Change didn't come all at once. It came in small ways, like rain before a storm. At first, most of the neighborhood stayed quiet. People watched from behind curtains or pretended not to notice Logan's gate as they drove past. But slowly, something shifted. The HOA had always acted like it knew best, but now people weren't so sure. It started with whispers. At the local diner, folks talked about how the HOA fined a man for parking his boat in his own driveway. A woman got a letter because her mailbox was a shade too dark. Another was told she couldn't hang wind chimes on her porch. The rules felt less like safety and more like control. And right in the middle of it all stood Logan Carter, the man who held the key. One evening, Carl and June knocked on his door. They didn't look angry this time. More tired than anything. "We've been getting complaints," Carl said. "From residents." Logan crossed his arms. "I figured." June sighed. "Barbara wants to take this to the county board. She says you're holding the community hostage." He shook his head. "I'm just protecting my land, same as any of you." Carl looked down. "We know. And some of us think you've got a point." That surprised Logan. He hadn't expected support from inside the HOA. "We're not asking you to give up the key," June said. "But maybe there's a way we can work together." He thought about it long after they left. Molly stopped by. The next day, she brought coffee and a smile. "You're making them nervous," she said. "I never wanted that," he replied. She nodded. "Maybe not, but sometimes people only listen when they feel the pressure." Weeks passed, then months. Slowly, the HOA meetings grew louder. Residents demanded change. They asked for fair rules, open votes, and limits on how much power the board had. Barbara fought back at first, but even she could see the tide turning. By summer, she stepped down. A new board was elected, one that listened more than it ruled. They reached out to Logan again. This time, not as enemies. "Let's find a better way," they said. And for the first time in a long while, Logan believed that might be possible. 2 years had passed since Logan bought the Porter land. The gate was still there, but it no longer felt like a weapon. It was just a gate now, part of life in Benton Creek, but not the center of it. The new HOA board was different. They met with neighbors before making decisions. Rules were fairer and fines were only used when needed. Even the fence stayed up, but people stopped seeing it as a wall. Barbara Ellis moved away. Rumor was she got a place in town where she could enjoy quiet without having to argue about it. Logan found peace again. He still ran his ranch, same as always. Mornings began with chores, afternoons with repairs, and evenings on his porch watching. The sky turned gold. But things weren't exactly the same. Molly Jones brought her son Tyler by more often. The boy liked helping with the cows and fixing broken tools. He wasn't much talk, but he worked hard. Logan saw a little of himself in him. Quiet strength, steady hands. One evening, Molly sat beside him on the steps. "You changed this place," she said. Logan shook his head. "Didn't plan to." "But you did," she went on. "You made them listen." He looked out across the field. Cows grazed in the distance. Birds flew low over the barn. Life was simple again. Not easy, but simple. "I didn't want to fight," he said after a while. "I just wanted to live how I always had." She smiled. "And now you can." The county helped install a second gate farther down the road, one that all residents could use. Logan agreed to let emergency vehicles pass through his gate any time. No questions asked. It was fair. It was right. Some nights he still thought about the early days, the anger, the letters, the feeling of being trapped on his own land. But those memories were fading now, like old tracks in dry dirt. He wasn't a hero, never claimed to be, just a man who stood his ground. And because of that, others felt they could too. As the sun set behind the hills, Logan leaned back and took a slow breath. For once, everything felt quiet again, and that was enough.